This is so great, Lisa. I find my main reason for coming is that what happens is your words are always they always resonate here, but somehow it's just easier just to be. There's this field of just presence that is just so nurturing somehow in all of this. Anyway, thank you for that.
Oh,
Um,
it's a pleasure. Well, I mean, it's what's happening, and yeah, it's God in the end. But as to
mm,
be the humble human, you've got to like stay on the human level and expression. Like it's a pleasure, but in the end, it's yeah, God. All is God.
yeah, I wanted to get your take on this. I've been a life coach for many years, and what came to me a long time ago that I use sometimes with clients, um, it's a metaphor to help people see what's really going on, so that the human part can move with it in whatever way. And that is this, that beingness, this is the metaphor, is like this beautiful light, and that's what we are eternally, this beautiful light. And that through conditioning, pre-birth, and of course birth and onward up to about the age of 7, things happen to the character that don't feel good. And what happens then is every time there's that experience, it's like a dark cloth is placed over the light, and so it diminishes the experience or the knowing of the light a little bit. And by the time we're, say, about 7 years old, there are innumerable dark cloths covering up the light. The light hasn't gone anywhere, but the character doesn't know the light, and in fact thinks of itself as all of these dark cloths. I'm not good enough, I'm not important, there's something wrong with me, I'm not safe, and on and on. And that as a person engages in some kind of therapy, let's say, that what happens is these dark cloths are being removed by whatever amount at any particular time in whatever way. And of course, as that happens, there's more awareness coming through of the light that we always are. That just happens automatically as the dream starts to be peeled away from how the character is seeing it. And that
Mm.
ultimately, it sounds like, ultimately, from what you were saying, ultimately, being will just be completely revealed. But it isn't. I mean, the idea is that you don't have to go to see a therapist or a life coach for these, in the metaphor, these dark cloths to be removed. They get removed by whatever means they get removed. But the experience is the same, as there is that. I like the words. I think it's Nisargadatta's words. It's sincerity and earnestness that arises from within that moves someone in this direction to begin with. We don't know how that happens. Um, but as these dark cloths are disappeared by whatever means, then the awareness of beingness is more and more until it's all there is.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I would say it in a slightly different way, but yeah, that's really beautiful. In the end, I think that we have to come to our own way of saying it and seeing it, and it's going to vary slightly from person to person, their background, their experience. So my way of saying that would be slightly different, um, but it doesn't invalidate your way of saying it. You know, like I say this a lot in the book clubs, like you've really got to come to your own conclusion of Nisargadatta Maharaj. Like it's not like I interpret for people, like I interpret my opinion of it, and then it's like finding your own. It's not like I am right, and words and language is an evolution. It's not like a fixed thing. So our ideas, our words, our descriptions of things are always going to evolve and become more and more expanded and changed. It's part of the problem, I think, of uh, like of the idea of teaching and And something that I like about what the internet does is that you see these teachers and you see people not just in non-duality, but you see them evolve over the years. And I think that's really beautiful because we tend to have an idea that you've got to have a fixed view of something, and that fixed view says something about you. It says that you're enlightened, awakened, knowledgeable, clever. And I feel like views can endlessly change. Ideas, expressions, opinions, our way of seeing these things can change. What doesn't change with the awakening is the deep knowing of what you are and that expansive nature of it. That it's not locked behind somewhere. It's not locked in like I am something and I'm moving in time. Yeah.
Mm.
But I can give you my interpretation of what I would say with you, for what you said. But
Yes.
please know that that doesn't mean that your way of saying of it is not right or lesser than. It's just a different way of saying it. And some people that are listening might find your way of expressing it easier and more touching to their experience. And then some people might find mine, and there is no, truth to either being the right or wrong. This is where we get into wars, is where we're like, my idea is correct. How can an idea be correct? It's like an insanity.
It's
Yeah,
more
so
like a collaboration.
yeah, it's love like a what?
Collaboration.
Yeah, yeah, elaboration. So my way of saying it would be, so, and it's so similar, but it would be that, like, so we're born into this life with habits and conditions. Like you can see that from siblings. Like and it could be that the parents treat the kid in different ways, but it seems that there's different personalities that come into this life. And who knows why or how that is created, but it's like there's a uniqueness to all of us. So in more Indian tradition, it would be from past lives or karma. And then in a Western, it would be like DNA or something, I don't know, idea. But there's some mystery to it that there's different personalities or habits and conditions that are born with each body. And they come into life, and then at an early age, so in the beginning, there is no identification with the body. The body has habits and conditions already, but like the baby doesn't know that this is its hand or that is its hand. It's just totally expansive. So it looks up and it doesn't know there's mother. And you could say that the baby is totally at home, but it doesn't know it's at home. It just is at home like an animal because it hasn't got the complex thinking that's evolved yet. So it just is at home. And then it keeps getting told that it is something. And maybe this is like an evolutionary process that always will happen. It's not about what the parents do or don't do, but it keeps getting told, you're Lisa, you're John, you're da-da. The baby is, you are there, you are there, you are there. And what seems to form is this energetic expression in the body that there is actually something in here, rather than we are all totally empty. And that emptiness is the expansion, is the arising and disappearing of things freely. So it's not that the baby doesn't experience pain, the baby cries, the baby could be very difficult in comparison to another baby. And it's not that one's got more ego, it's just habits and conditions of the body. But the baby, when it's crying, isn't crying because its essence is perfectly still. So its essence hasn't moved. So the baby is in pain, the baby is crying, but it is pure beingness, pure aliveness. And then at a certain age, that baby begins to contract, maybe like 2, 3, 4. It begins to contract, but not fully. It just begins to slightly have a center. And as it has a center, the problem begins. Even if the child has been abused, even if the baby is being mistreated, sorry, my language is going. So the child's been mistreated. That's not it identifying. So the child can be mistreated and be in pain and be screaming a lot and have all types of physiological problems. But internally, there's nobody that's experiencing this, so that's totally free. Then when it begins to feel like something, there begins this energetic feeling that there is something inside of this body, rather than all experiencing coming and going in emptiness. It begins to feel like something is there. And then this feeling begins to become more and more expanded in time. Energetically, it begins to feel like you are the baby that's mistreated. You are the child that didn't get loved. You are the child that is bad or good. You are the child. So all these things happen to the child and it gets put onto the child. And then energetically, it begins to have these feelings. So if the parent's always saying it's bad, it begins to feel like it really is a bad child in time. Whereas if it hadn't identified, the body would be being conditioned that it's bad. So there would be these responses happening, these physiological responses happening to that, but there would be no ownership to it. So it would be disappearing and appearing in emptiness, in spaciousness, which is totally different to a child which is experiencing that through a timeline. It's all about this contraction and this experience into timeline, and suddenly somebody having an experience, and then somebody feeling not quite right, and then looking more and more into the timeline to feel better about itself. So that's the way I would phrase it, but I kind of really like the way you phrase it too, and don't think the way you phrase it is wrong, because it's also, it is right. It's like you get more and more sheets put on yourself with these ideas, but it's, to me, in my seeing of it, it's not exactly the sheets of the problem, it's the owning of those sheets that are the problem. Because we all get conditioned. Like I've conditioned Khaleesi, my dog, in unfortunate ways. Not that we can compare a dog to a human, but accidentally through time, I made mistakes with her, and there's certain bodily responses that happen to her. But I feel, even though I don't know her experience, but when I look at her, like she's not taking that conditioning personally. So it's coming and going instantaneously. So she's not holding a Khaleesi that's had this conditioning or that conditioning. Like she's a very fearful dog. And I didn't really realize that at the beginning. And I sometimes exacerbated that fear by some of the things that I did. Like I'm a bit clumsy, and we've had quite a few accidents where I've fallen on her or fallen over her or dropped plates near her, so she's a bit flighty with me, and I can imagine that's painful. And if a kid had that and owned that as something, as them, it would be a whole story about them being fearful and they've got to be strong and brave. Whereas Khaleesi is just quite like, as soon as I get up and start walking near her, she's like, the thing is moving, the large thing is moving, danger, danger. Like, it might flatten me again. Like, so so you understand what I'm trying to say, which is kind of the same as what you're saying, just slightly different angle and more focus maybe on nothing owning it, no ownership.
Yeah, I like that part particularly, is these things happen, but the problem is in taking ownership of them and believing that's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, pleasure.